Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the four presidential candidates who had both the political commitment and the political courage to be part of this conversation. My area of research and expertise is on foreign policy and defense and security, so my first question will be within the rubric of these issue areas. All right. If the Quad were to become a collective security alliance, you, as our country's chief architect of our foreign policy, are you going to make the Philippines as a member of the Quad? Why and why not?
Professor Carlos's question will be addressed to Secretary Roberto Gonzales first.
Well, we will always be part of arrangements like that. And, yes, it's important. Dapat lagi kasi may mga kasama tayo, may mga hiharap tayo na problema sa mundo. Kaya kailangan may mga arrangements sa ganyan. Dapat ginawa.
Secretary Gonzales, if you have nothing to add, the other candidates may react to his answer. I think Secretary Bernie Belia.
The Philippines needs to retain and defend foreign policy, and in which case it needs to be able to dance between the two great powers. As we can maintain relationships with them, but not to join. However, because we need to be able to maintain that specific independent stance, we can relate with either one, the other one, but at the same time we need to retain our independence and be able to sustain our own sovereignty. Thank you.
Yeah, but Mr. Abella, remember, you're still linked to the United States of America because of the Mutual Defense Treaty. So the Quad is composed of, well, so-called democracies, and so are you more leaning towards being part of the Quad or some other collective security arrangement?
It's not a question of leaning more, but the question of being able to maintain both by maintaining a balance.
Yeah, I have a problem with the concept of independence because it's like you're sitting on the fence. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean to say that we need to be able to make our own stance and be able to make our own decisions without undue influence from anybody.
I don't know that being friends with everybody's foreign policies.
We're not being friends with everybody. We can have trade with the greater power, which is our neighbor. On the other hand, we can maintain our FTTs with the people in Quad.
Yeah, well, the reason why, and this is for all the candidates I asked this question, is that right now I'm sure the big powers are trying to carve their own spheres of influence. And because we've always been within the sphere of influence of the United States of America, the Quad is simply an extension of this proposed collective security arrangement.
On the other hand, we can always be sure that they will always stand for us.
Well, of course, nobody can answer that question, even if we ask Biden today, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Marcos?
Yes, I think any of these agreements we should, of course, encourage as long as it is very clear to us what is the advantage to the Philippines. What the professor just mentioned was she spoke about the great powers trying to carve out spheres of influence. I reject that model that I believe no longer applies in the geopolitics of the modern world. The old Cold War thinking. We have to apply our own way. And so it really would depend on what is inside of what those agreements say that the Philippines is what will be doing and what those other partners of ours will be doing for the Philippines. Once again, because we shouldn't think of the old Cold War system, we should always think in terms of the fine line that the Philippines has to tread in all our foreign policy decisions.
But if Mr. Marcos, if you reject the concept of spheres of influence, does that mean you are going to scuttle the Mutual Defense Treaty when you become President of the Republic?
By no means.
Linked to the United States of America as a defense ally.
By no means. The relationship with the United States, our special relationship with the United States is not something that we can treat, be cavalier about. It is a very important one. And it has stood us in good stead for over 100 years. And that, I think, will never disappear from the Philippine psyche. The idea and the memory of what the United States did for us and fought with us in the last war. And so that is a specific part of our foreign policy. But then, as we approach, we know that we are a hot spot right now. The West Philippine Sea is a hot spot in geopolitics right now. And that is why we still have to find our own line in terms of all of these arrangements. Except the one simple principle is that we will not cede 1 square inch of the Philippines to any country.
Karen, do I have time for one more follow-up with Mr. Marcos?
Yes, Professor Carlos.
Yeah. Okay. If that is the stance that you have taken, Mr. Marcos, suppose you have a situation where China is trying to, take us in, embrace us within this sphere of influence. How would you react as our chief architect of our foreign policy?
Once again, in terms of specifically to China, the correct approach still seems to be one of engagement. And no matter what the superpowers are trying to do, we have to work in the interest of the Philippines, and we cannot allow ourselves to be part of the foreign policy of any other country. And we have to have our own foreign policy. So again, whatever the superpowers do, we as a highly strategic geographic, having a highly strategic geographical location in the world, really have to walk that very, very fine line between these great powers who, I always say, these are great powers we are in between. If they sneeze at the same time, we disappear from the map. And that is something that we always